Hey guys, Alex with Bay Cities Construction. Today, I want to talk to you about commonly asked balcony repair questions. Let's get into it. I've been looking at a ton of balconies, probably 6 or 7 a week, and there's a lot of different types of damage. So I want to talk to you about some of the commonly asked questions by my clients, by property managers, and other real estate professionals that I come across when I do these inspections. I think when property owners or apartment managers first get the task of dealing with the balconies, they want to know, they want to have an understanding of how do you know if you even have any damage, right? Because some of the damage is hidden behind the stucco and the waterproof system. And in some balconies that have tile, you can't tell what the damage is because the tile hides the whole thing. So I'm going to go over some key indicators that will show you, will indicate, will lead you to believe that there's some damage in there. The number one indicator is when you look underneath the balcony, if you have any mold, any discoloration, any type of rust looking, dark, moldish, water staining, or straight up cracking underneath the balcony, you probably have a significant leak. As you walk the surface, like in this picture, and you see cracks on the surface of the waterproofing system or at the base of the handrail posts, you probably have some water intrusion. Another key indicator that you may have a leak is over the living area underneath the balcony. Typically speaking, we see if you have a sliding door and there's water leaking underneath the door, it'll damage the drywall beneath. So those are some of the common indicators that I've seen. Also, if you have parapet walls and you have a scupper popping out of the wall, if that scupper has any rust coming through it, it's probably leaking. So if you see any of, with that said, if you have any of these key indicators, you're probably going to need some repair. Not just on the waterproof system, but you're going to need some repair to the wood framing underneath. If you have scuppers that are leaking, you're going to have to replace the scuppers. If you have rust coming through the metal base plate of the handrail posts, you're going to have to do some repair. You're going to have to open up you're going to have to remove the waterproof system and expose the base plate. You may have to repair or replace it. So any indication that with dark mold, chipping stucco, deep cracks, rippling of the waterproof system on the deck, any of that will indicate that you've got some significant repairs to do. The next question that I get is, does my balcony fall under SB 326 or 721? 721 and 326 have the same requirements. They're just different types of structures. One is an HOA and one are private apartment buildings. So the issue is if the building is more than 2 units. If it's more than 2 units, then it falls under SB 326 or 721, regardless of whether it's an HOA or just a multifamily residential. This is really addressing cantilever elements that are completely suspended under the integrity of the floor framing. How do you know if a balcony is cantilevered or not? It'll have no walls underneath it. It'll have no posts. It'll be completely freestanding, like in this picture. What are some of the visual indicators that you need to redo my waterproofing? All right, so the waterproofing, there's 2 things, right? There's the waterproofing system that's above the decks or the balconies or the catwalks, and then there's the structural framing that's underneath there. You could have a system that the waterproofing membrane is at the end of its life, but it's not quite leaking yet, or it just started leaking and the structural framing has not been damaged. In this scenario, you could just simply remove the existing waterproof system and replace it, or you can install a new waterproof system over it, pending that you don't have any damage underneath. So Some of the visual indicators is fading paint, peeling of really the color layer. So you'll have like a splotchy look. It'll almost look like the paint is blistering or coming off. It could be that the step before that is that it's just faded. So if you see the surface of the deck is not peeling, but it's faded, that means the UV light has deteriorated the pigmentation. And then if it's kept unaddressed, or if there's no maintenance, if there isn't another coat of paint put on there, then it'll start blistering, and then it'll lose its waterproof properties, and then it'll expose the wood underneath it, and then it just spirals. What does it mean when a contractor says does my balcony need engineering? If your balcony is structurally damaged, the floor joist underneath is damaged, then you very well may need a structural engineer to design the repair. And it really just depends on how much the damage is. So if you've got damage, like in this picture, you can see there's an L-shaped, we removed the stucco there. And the beam that's affected is a cantilevered beam that cantilevers out 12 feet. 6 feet of the 12 is damaged. So that entire beam's going to have to be replaced, but you're going to have to get an engineer to come up with a design on how to fix it. So in scenarios where there's structural damage or the handrails need to be redesigned and installed, fabricated and installed, you're going to need engineering. What are some of the different waterproofing systems out there? Well, there's two main ones that we use. It's the Life Specialty Systems that goes over concrete or any, it can go over lightweight concrete or the old magnesite. And then there's another system. The most common one that we use is the AL Flex, which is an acrylic latex flex system. And that uses a wire lath stapled down with several layers of acrylic resin, and it's a beautiful system, just like this one. Here's a sample of it. After I complete my waterproofing, will I need to do it again, and how often? If you maintain the top coat and paint it, have us paint it every 3 years. And I say paint loosely because it's really a top coat. It happens to have color on it, and you can pick and choose what color you want, but it's more than paint. It really is the top coat of the system, and it's one of the most important parts to keep maintained so you can preserve the integrity of the waterproof system itself. So paint it every 3 years, and keep the planters off of it. Don't rub or drag 150-pound concrete planters over your beautiful waterproof system once we install it. People also ask me, do we need a permit? You will need a permit if you're addressing or replacing the handrails, if you're doing any structural repairs. If you're just doing a straight waterproof system, maybe you're replacing a little section of plywood or something like that, you probably don't need a permit for that. If you're just doing straight waterproofing with no stucco repair, none of that stuff, you definitely do not need a building permit for that. For those of you that have tile, I get the question is, my balcony has tile, can we retile the surface after it's done? Why, yes, you can retile your surface, but it'll be extremely expensive to retile your surface because you're probably going to have to replace the plywood underneath with 3/4 of an inch CDX to make it very stiff, maybe 1 inch CDX to make it extremely stiff. And then you can install a LifeTech system that's approved to be the underlayment of tile. But it is possible. How much is it going to cost, and what's the average? Well, I think that the average 60 square foot balcony is probably going to be somewhere between $5,000 and $12,000, something like that. Could be 15. And it really just depends on how much damage there is. It depends on whether you have to break stucco and flash the walls. Many of these houses, you have to replace the sliding glass door because some people have original aluminum doors that are not very energy efficient and they leak. So it really varies. I think the best thing to do is to get a full assessment on what needs to be done and what else other than the waterproofing needs to get done in order to have a good understanding of what the cost is going to be. If my balcony is cantilevered, does that impact the price to repair it? Absolutely. If your balcony is cantilevered and you suffer structural damage, whatever the cantilever distance is, it'll be twice that into the structure. So if your balcony sticks out 4 feet, you would have to replace 8 feet going into the unit. So you have to rip out the floors, redo the floors, put in a new subfloor in, put in a new subfloor in for that section, but put in new floor joists, and then rebuild that whole section of the balcony. So it's super, super important that you try and prevent having massive damage by doing the maintenance and repairing any leaks as soon as you know that you have one on the balcony. Will my HOA pay to repair my balcony? The answer is maybe. Some HOAs cover the cost of the balcony repair. Some of them do not. Some of them consider it to be part of the unit itself. So you have to check with your HOA board and look at your bylaws and see what it says, because there's no state law about who has to fix it in an HOA. It really defers back to the HOA bylaws. How long does it take to repair my balcony? I get that question all the time. It's the second asked question, because the first one is how much is it going to cost to fix it? So it really depends. If you're just putting in a straight waterproofing, it's going to be about a week, could be 4 days. If you're doing some repairs, it could be 2 weeks. If you're doing structural repairs, it could be 3 weeks. So you really have to take it kind of on a case-by-case basis after you consider that you need just more than just a simple waterproof install. Some people ask me, what's a resurface of a balcony? And can that be done? In some cases where there's no spongy floors, there's no structural damage, it is possible to resurface it by you putting one system over another. But that is not as common as people may think. And there's a lot of people resurfacing areas that shouldn't be resurfaced. So what do I mean by that? If you resurface an area that has active mold infestation on the subfloor, in other words, it was leaking, and maybe it's not structurally deteriorated to the point that it's dangerous, but there is active mold, like in the picture that we're going to show you here. This picture here of this job in Santa Monica, you could see underneath the stairs, all of that white stuff, that stuff is active mold. If you put a new water system over it, the mold is still decomposing the wood underneath it. Okay, the damage is occurring. So when you just re-waterproof through the outside, you are postponing the inevitable, which is a tremendous amount of damage. So just got to be real careful. Got to talk to somebody that's going to give you all the pros and cons of what your options are. And you have to understand that if you resurface a balcony and there's an active mold infestation, and you go to get the balcony certified, either SB 326 or 721, the minute that the inspector puts the borescope in there and sees that there's active mold, it's going to be timeout. This balcony doesn't comply, and you'll get a correction, and you get to rip off all of the brand new resurfacing that you put on there. A common question is, why should I keep up with the repair and maintenance? How often? Now, here's the thing. I've got some complaints from some of the apartment owners because they're constantly fighting, the repair and maintenance. It turns out that Mother Nature is destroying these buildings that's their main use for the retirement. So check it out, guys. These buildings, the balconies are exposed. So you have to do some maintenance on them. You have to recoat them every 3 years with a color coat, top coat. You got to make sure you keep the planters off of them. You got to make sure that you do whatever you can to patch up any holes in case anybody damages them as they move in and out of your various apartment units. So I would say every 3 years, do a top coat, inspect them once a year and see if there's any damage that's occurred to the surface and get that little spot damage repaired. If you notice that you have some flat spots where the water's accumulated and leaves kind of like this dark ring. I'll show you what that looks like here in one of these pictures here. We actually have one of those at this Redondo job. It's a lighter colored decking surface, and it has rings of water where the water stands still. So you want to get that remediated. There's a way to patch that up and bring up the low spot and basically get that water to slope off the balcony and not puddle. I've said it once and I'll say it again. Just get rid of the planters. If you got renters in your units, make sure that they are not allowed to put in plants in the balconies. You don't need plants. Plants and constantly watering them and dragging heavy planters cause a lot of damage, and that's just the bottom line. So just know that you're going to maybe do your maintenance schedule every 2 years if you're going to allow people to have a lot of planters on the balcony surface. This is a question for some of the renters when they complain that the landlord doesn't want to do the repairs in the balcony. What can they do? So with the new laws that have come out over the last few years, this has become front and center for the building safety departments. If you feel like your balcony is unsafe and you've shared your concerns with the property management company and the owner, then your next course of action would be to report the unsafe condition to the local building safety office. And I guarantee you that somebody will actually do something about that. Okay, this question is about railing. Should my balcony railing be metal, wood? Doesn't matter. It does matter. If it can be steel, that's preferable. Some of you have balconies, particularly down here by the beach cities, that are made out of wood. They will not last anywhere near as long as a steel one will. So just consider, it's a very big expense to switch over from wood to steel, but it's really worth it over the long haul. And especially if you have a lot of rails that are deteriorated that need to be demoed, don't replace wood with wood. Get a design done for if you switch over from wood to steel, you're definitely going to have an engineer do a design for the way that the posts are attached to either the fascia or the deck. So make sure that if you can afford it, switch over, and you won't regret it. Well, folks, thanks for watching my frequently asked questions. Over the last few months, we've accumulated a lot of different questions, and I'm sure that in another 2 or 3 months we'll have another set of questions to share with you. And this is how we learn, right? We learn by looking at what the site conditions are, what are the problems that many of the owners the HOA owners and the residents are going through based on what we've discovered during the site visit. So I'd like to thank you again for watching. My name is Alex with Bay Cities Construction. And remember, you don't need a contractor. You need a team of pros. My name's Alex Rodriguez, reminding you, you don't need a contractor. You need a team of pros.